Yeah, we'll go ahead and start now. We've got Norma Stark with us. Norma, don't let me forget at the end of this program to give you an opportunity to let people know where they can get a hold of you and everything too. But
Okay.
that'll be at the end. Anyway, yeah, we have Norma Stark, and I know I don't know as much as I should about Norma, so we're just going to start out at the beginning. Norma, where do you hang your hat these days? Where are you located?
Oh my gosh, I'm in the beautiful city of Gig Harbor in the state of Washington, and it is so pretty here. So, yep, I'm in a beautiful place. So, if you know anything about the state of Washington, or if you've ever been to Gig Harbor, you don't want to leave. So,
Is that on the ocean?
it is actually. It's called Gig Harbor because we're kind of in the harbor. And my daughter lives 5 miles from me, and she's actually on Henderson Bay. So about 2 weeks ago, we sat out on her deck and watched the orcas. So that
Wow.
that was really fun. Yep, I
Pretty
actually took a
cool.
video of that. So and put it to music, and made drama out of it. But anyway, yeah, it's really pretty here.
Well, that is awesome. That is awesome. Um, well, Norma, can you tell us how long have you been doing long arm quilting? How long have you been doing quilting in general? You told me before that you had started on quilting before and you got into long arming later. Tell us a little bit about your timeline and journey.
Sure. I'm kind of a late bloomer, but I guess it's been 23 years. I started in 2001 just loving quilts and decided that I had to take a class. So I took a class and learned to quilt, and then I wanted to know how to finish it. So I ended up hand quilting my first two quilts I ever made. And it took me a year to do each one. And I decided that's enough of that.
You mean
So
like hand quilting?
oh yeah. Oh yeah, I hand quilted them. I still have them. Yeah. So they're not exactly hand quilted well, but anyway, they're done. And then I decided that there's enough of that. So I did a lot on my domestic machine, and I would take those golden treasure papers, some people might know what I was talking about, and lay them on the quilt and trace around them. And I did that on my domestic machine. And then I decided that was enough of that. So then I went to buy a Grace frame and got a domestic machine and put it on the frame so that it was just a regular domestic machine that rolled up and down the frame. And I did some like meandering, simple things like that. And so I kind of started out as a free motion quilter. And
Can I
go
stop you?
ahead, Bobby.
Let
Ask
me
me.
ask you,
Yeah.
so what was how were you exposed to different quilting and I mean who kind of turned you on to it in the first place? Were you involved with a guild at the time or
Not really. I saw at the time it was my sister-in-law, and I saw some quilts on a frame, and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to learn how to do that. And anyway, she said, well, you have to get a sewing machine, and I didn't have a sewing machine, so I bought a $79 Kenmore sewing machine, and that's how I kind of got into piecing. And then as far as that goes, I asked my teacher, how do you finish these? And she was giving me options. You could hand sew them, you could take them to a long arm quilter, you can quilt them yourself on your domestic machine. And then I thought, I want to do this all myself. So I want to finish it. So then I started finishing my quilts by quilting them myself one way or another. So does that kind of answer it?
yeah, I wanted to fill in the spaces as
Yeah.
we go. So yeah, so you're doing a little bit of free motion.
Yep, doing a little bit of free motion. And then, that domestic machine, you've only got about 12 inches, right? So
Yeah.
I was like, that's not going to work. So then I ended up, now I'm just doing my own quilts, right? So I
Mm.
ended up getting a baby lock crown jewel, and it was computerized. So I thought I died and gone to heaven. And I get this computerized machine and I start working with it. And it wasn't terribly expensive, but at the time, I also looked at the gamels and said, oh, those are a lot more money, so I can't do that. Well, you get what you pay for, because it didn't sustain very long. It was always having to be repaired. I had a part box because I had to keep replacing parts on it. And it was plastic. So it wasn't the industrial machine that the Gamel is. So I ended up, I actually was on the Gamble page forever as a testimonial because I said I should have bought the Gamble to begin with, right? So I ended up buying my Gamble. Actually, I was looking here at my notes. I bought my first Gamble in 2016. So I bought that first Gamble Statler. And at that time, I was working at the dental office full time. And I decided that was kind of the field I was in. And I had decided that if I buy this machine, this has to be a business because they're expensive and I got to pay it off and I got to make so much a month to make my payments because I financed it. So
Yeah.
I ended up deciding I was going to work part-time. I wasn't going to quit my job that, you know, my boss wrote the paycheck every month. I was going to go slow. So I did end up doing that part-time for a long time and started taking in business. And I joined a guild. I was the president of the guild. I kind of started reaching out in different avenues. One of the things I did was I decided I'm really good. Yep, I'll stop.
At this time, were you in Washington at this time?
No, I was in Texas at this time.
Okay. And okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm following your
Yeah.
story. All right, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I was in Texas at this time when I got my first Gamble, and I I didn't quilt for the public, so I started reaching out and joined the guild, like I said. And one of the things is a lot of people don't know this about me, but they're probably going to know about it before I'm done, is that I used to be a motivational speaker. So I'm used to getting in front of groups and speaking. And so I started reaching out to guilds to maybe speak on different subjects for quilting. And I was starting to get enough experience that I knew some things actually. And then after that, I decided that, you know, I would start teaching. So I started teaching piecing classes on how to make quilts because I'm really good at reading directions. And believe it or not, I have some friends that they're not very good at that.
Yeah.
So, so I'm really good at picking up a pattern and really going for it. So I decided that I was going to start teaching, and I knew that I was good speaking to a group. So I started doing that. And actually, that drew in a lot of people for me because they trusted me then, because I'm their teacher and I'm showing them what to do. And then I quilted every class sample that I ever did. So then the class sample would be there quilted, and they'd go, "How did you do that?" And I would tell them about my Gamble and that I'm a long arm quilter. And then they were like, "Oh, well, will you quilt for me?" So then they would ask me to quilt, and I built trust. And so probably my Texas group, a large amount was from my students and getting the word out there then.
Okay. Um, so
But
your your full-time job that you went to part-time, and how long did you stay with that? Are you still or
no, so I went part-time and I was part-time. This is when I was in Texas. And so what happened is that it became so busy for me that it became overwhelming. And I think COVID hit about that time. So at one time during COVID, I think I had 80 quilts in my closet because everybody was quilting during COVID. You know, that was the thing. They
yeah.
were all quilting, the quilting industry, the stores, the material, you know, everybody was thriving kind of in the quilting world because that was a good pastime to do. So I ended up going in December 2018. I went to my boss at the dental office and I said, "I'm going to go into quilting full time." And he tried to talk me out of it. And he said, "No, you're really good at the," I was an admin person. He said, "No, you're really good at the front desk." And I said, "No, but I want to quilt full time." I said, "I have customers." And what was happening because I was working part time is I was staying up all night trying to finish jobs and going to work at 6 a.m. So I was like killing myself. So I was like, enough of that. So, and I was debating and debating about it because it's a big jump, you know, and you have to think, now I'm responsible for making all the income myself to
Yeah.
come in. But I'd also at that time paid off my machine financially. So I felt like I was in a good place. So when he tried to talk me out of it, this is what I said to him. I said, "You know, When I was little, I wanted to work at a flower shop because everybody loves when you deliver flowers. They're like, they're happy to see you, except for a funeral, maybe, but they're happy to see you at the door. There's joy. And so I always thought that would be the best job ever. And I said, I have the second best job ever because every quilter that comes through my door goes, oh my gosh, you did an amazing job. I love my quilt. You're doing great. And I just get so much satisfaction out of the joy I bring for others when I do these quilts. And I said, I'm sorry, but the dental office can't do that for me. They can't give me that. So I said,
Gotcha.
this is my number one choice, and I'm going to have to move to this career. And I did. And without a regret, it was the right decision to do. Business was great.
The reasons that you told him came to fruition, right?
Yes, yes, it is. It is a fun job to have, to be quilting and to make so many people happy and to see that.
Well, Norma, I can tell that you were a motivational speaker because I'm so caught up in what you're saying that I missed a question from 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
Alice, when you were talking about your previous machine that you had before you got the Gamel, she asked, were you trying to repair that machine by yourself?
Well, some, but then I would call the tech guy and it'd be $500 a pop. And I was calling him every month. And I'd have to have a box of parts on hand. So I did some, but not always. Sometimes I had to call, but yeah,
Okay, okay, that's pretty often. I
yeah,
work in tech support and yeah.
right. Well,
Uh,
I got my Gamel and I was so thrilled because I think the only time I called was once to have it just serviced. I couldn't believe I had it 2 years and I needed to call no one. Yeah, it was amazing to me. And when I talk to people now and they ask me what kind of machine I have, my standard answer is I have a top of the line long arm. I have a Gamel Statler because in my opinion, this is top of the line. It's as industrial as you can get. So like I said, I wished I would have started there, but it's okay. But I am on my second Gamel now. So I don't know if we talked about that.
what about that? What do you have, two of them or what?
No, I don't have two of them. A lot of my friends would tell me they have two or they have three. I have a friend that has three, and I'm like, that's great. But I like to concentrate on one quilt at a time. I'm kind of one of those people that I really like to just work on that. So I do edge to edge and custom, and I alternate my weeks on what I'm going to do. But the reason I have a second one is because I moved and relocated and left Texas and went to the state of Washington where I'm at now. And so at that time, I really had to start over kind of as far as building a customer base. So the good news is that once you get a long arm quilter you love, I think this is very true, is that they're like your doctor, your dentist, your vet. You don't want to lose them. So here I get still a lot of Texas people that send me their quilts. I just got a bowl the other day from Texas that arrived, a bowl quilt. So anyway, I still get some of those old faithfuls that even though I gave them all the names of the local people in Texas they could use, I wanted to spread business to other people. But, if they contacted me and wanted me to do it, then I would do it. So I still get some of that. But in the meantime, in relocating, I sold my Gamel Statler in Texas. I moved here and bought the new Ascends were coming out. So I bought the new Ascend Gamel Statler because I was not going to live life without my Gamel Statler. That was, just, I knew that it was a good business. I knew that I could make a living. I knew that I didn't really want to go back to the dental office. I wanted to work with the Gamel Statler and quilters.
And how do you like the Ascend?
I really like it. I usually run it at 15 and I usually will speed everything up till I feel comfortable. There are certain things I'll slow it down for, but I really do like it. And I was just really enthralled by the fact that it's much more accurate and it does quilt, things a little bit faster because
It does.
even though I have one machine, I do like to, when I do edge to edge, I try to do at least 2 a day. So
Okay. Yeah, those Ascends have they have beefier X and Y motors that move the machine and the belts that move those motors. So they're
yeah,
able to maintain the accuracy and with higher speed. All right, we got it. I could talk to you. This program could go in 3 hours, but we don't have 3 hours.
I know.
So you started what your first gamble was a Statler, right?
Yep.
And now you say you do both hand guided and computerized, or custom.
I do edge to edge and computerized. Now, long story short, when I first got my gamble, I went to a class with Linda Taylor because in my head, I was going to be a free motion quilter. That was in my head. So I went and took a class, and I think Corey Pearson was right next to me, and we did this free motion quilting, and we did feathers, and I did really good. I'm not going to say that I did terrible, but then I went over and saw the computer feather and went, oh, we're going that way. So anyway, I do mostly computerized. There are small areas where I'll flip in some free motion that I put in, but most of the time it's edge to edge. I would say 90% of my business is edge to edge, but I also will do custom. I usually ask them to send me a picture because I don't take all custom, but I want to look at it. But recently, I have quilted a truck, a cat, and now, like I said, I just got this bull from Texas, and so those will all be custom. Yeah.
Okay. So all right. So when you first started,
But my custom is computerized. I don't usually do too much free motion with my
okay,
custom. I'll
okay,
usually find a digital design, and I like to mix them up. I may use 5 different designers designs and throw them in the quilt because I look at the quilt, what's good for the quilt.
okay.
So I don't use sets a lot, but some.
Do you know about how much volume you do? Like how many quilts, monthly, yearly? Um,
It's been really hard with relocating because
how long ago did you move to Washington?
I moved to Washington in 2022, in May 2022. For a
Okay.
while, I was without my gamble, Statler, because I wasn't really sure where I was going to move, where I was going to put it. So September 2022, I got my Statler and started back in business. So in the meantime, to get my foot in the door, I came up with a plan. So my plan was they don't know I'm here. And I'm really good. I mean, I feel like I'm really good. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel like I have the experience. Um, and I have 70 class quilt samples here in my room, and they're all beautifully quilted because they're all custom. And
Mhm.
so I decided, how am I going to get my name out there? So I started contacting guilds, and I started doing trunk shows. So I would go out with all my quilts and I would do trunk shows. And I probably have done about 12 trunk shows in the area. I'm actually doing another one in September, and I did actually some even online. So I did some stuff for guilds online. I did some, but I kept going out there. But the online ones, like, was Virginia. So, that doesn't count because it's not local, but I tried to keep doing local stuff. Then I went to every quilt store and I said, I'm a teacher. I can teach quilt patterns.
Mhm.
So I teach now for 3 quilt stores, and every student that I have says, oh, will you quilt my quilt? Because I saw your class sample and I like it. So then I got business from that. So there for a while, I was really kind of struggling because it was like I would have enough for 1 week and that was it. And I had to just, you know, cross my hands and pray that the next week would be okay. And now it's to the point where I'm about 2 or 3 weeks out. So it's building. So they're starting to go. And then they had a huge expo here in the Washington State Fairgrounds. And I signed up as a teacher. I signed up got a booth. That old saying, you have to spend money to make money. You know, I really put myself out there. Business cards, I did little free gifts. I did everything I could. And now they kind of know I'm here. I'm still working on that. But so now I would say I'm about 2 weeks out on quilting.
Okay. So, yeah, so you had an established business and then totally relocated. Washington is a long way from Texas.
It
And
is.
so it's kind of like starting a whole new business.
It
Um,
is.
so when you did the cards and all the what you got booths and things at the quilt shows, um, do you feel like that did you get response from that? Just for the people that are watching this, you know,
Right.
they want to know what works.
Right, exactly. Well, there was two things too for me because I do twofold. I'm a piecing teacher and I'm a long armor. So my goal was I have a website, I have a YouTube, I have Instagram, you know, I have all these media things. So I sell classes for piecing, I do some long arm stuff.
Mhm.
So anyway, I had a dual goal in mind when I was out there. So I would say that I probably spent more money than I made, but as my financial person and I have talked about, that trickling effect takes a while. So I think that people, you know, are coming, I feel like slowly. That happened in February, and I feel like things are picking up because people are starting to you know, still come from the after effects from that ripple effect. So um, I was able to already pay off my new Statler that I bought in September 2022. So business was good enough to do that. So I will say that. But anyway,
Okay.
um, back in 2019, I looked and it looked like I did 220 quilts that year.
Okay.
So, so this year and last year's just been kind of hard to calculate because it's been, you know, a little bit here and there.
Yeah, you're still coming out of that flux period.
Right. But the other services I offer, which they called me up, the quilt store called me up from Texas and said, you spoil your quilters because I do binding for them. So I offer a binding service and I do a decorative stitch binding and I actually do a class on it. But anyway, they said they want us to bind for them, and the quilt store has a long arm and they don't bind. So they told me they want labels, they want binding, and I offer those services. So if you can offer something that somebody else doesn't, you know, then they're going to want to go to you. But because I left, they were mad at me because I spoiled them. But anyway, here they're getting used to that. So I have a lot of people that have me bind for them. Yeah.
Okay. I have another question here. Alice is asking, and I don't know if you have the background for this or not. Do you think that computerized quilting and embroidery machine quilting are similar? If someone used to do the embroidery but wants to make the leap and turn it into a business, would you expect the transition to be smooth?
I
Now,
would
what do you think about that?
I would say absolutely. Here's the thing with computerized quilting, you have to have some computer in your brain, or you have to learn it because, you know,
Sure.
it is computerized. So I find the biggest roadblock sometimes is that that doesn't go well. But I started out, honest to God, embroidering way before I quilted. So I used to go, I take my embroidery machine and I go from mall to mall and I worked for Ralph Lauren and I would embroider bags and I would go from every holiday. And I did that for a long time. And then I kind of got into the quilting. So I started that way. But
Ralph Lauren,
I,
huh?
yeah, I do feel like that. Yeah, it was the worst job ever. I tell you why, because they line up behind me and say, hurry up and get my bag done, right? So
Mm.
the pressure was unsurmountable. I love quilting because I can do it by myself and then tell them it's ready. But anyway, I will tell you that I did start with the software with embroidery. And if you can do software and you can learn it, and before I got my Statler, I went online and you can get online and study the Creative Studio software because I knew the Crown Jewel software. I didn't know the Creative Studio software. I would sit for hours and just study it before it even came. just so I could study what were the buttons, what were the commands, what. So the other thing I guess I feel like that new quilters need to know, and learning Creative Studio, work at it, learn it. The Olympic teams don't just do it, they work at it, they practice at it. I use my Gamble Statler every day. When I've taught a few lessons to people, if I teach you and you don't go home and use it, it doesn't help. You have to use it consistently and get it in your brain and your head. Repeat, repeat, repeat.
Yeah, and I know, and I'm sure that's ingrained in you being a teacher yourself. But I've heard that from almost every person we talk to. They emphasize the importance of how important it was for them to learn the software and the processes. And I will use that as an opportunity to plug. You can go to gamble.com, and we have entire courses that video courses that you can learn how to use the Creative Studio, and videos from our different Gamble instructors, new owner training and everything. So yeah,
Bobby, could
I
I
agree
say,
with you on that. Go
yeah,
ahead.
Bobby, can I say something about that?
Mhm.
Because I bought a new Statler Ascend, I got that learning program. Now, do
You
I
did.
know a lot of that? Yes, I do. But I went in and I went through the whole learning program, and I was thrilled that Gamble did that, because that did not happen the first time I bought my Gamble. So when I bought this one, I went in and I looked at, how to thread the machine, edge to edge, repeat pattern. Everything was there. And I was like, this is so great. So my question was, and I don't know if they've done it or not, but the lady I sold my machine to, I worked with her a lot, but I thought people that buy used machines, they need this, they need to understand,
Mhm.
it's not,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. People, if somebody buys a used machine, there's a lot of, you can get a good solid used Statler out there, it or Gamble. But you won't have the warranty, and uh
right.
a new Gamble machine does come with the free new owner training also with it,
Yeah, it
as
does. And that, I have to tell you, it's a great tool, and I hope people open it and use it, because I'm like, I just enjoyed watching it and seeing the different things that they were doing and everything, and just thought, this is great. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and tech support, well, so this is not working correctly, and I said, well, you're not using it correctly. Do you know, have you used your
Yeah.
new owner
Bobby, did you,
training?
yeah, Bobby, did you see the note that they popped up that anyone can purchase the new training?
Yes, anyone can purchase the new owner training.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to gamble.com and look under the educational opportunities there, and anyone can purchase that. Thank you,
Yeah.
Shindy, or whoever that
Yeah.
is.
To
Um,
the new ones out there, all I can say is education, 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 learn, learn, just keep trying to learn something new, and then challenge yourself to do it, and don't be afraid, because we kind of get afraid that, oh, we're going to mess something up, right? Yeah.
yeah, because I'll tell you this, quilt computer, either hand guided or computerized, it involves skill and knowledge, and it's not going to be for everybody. But if you're willing to put the time and the effort in to educating yourself, the resources are so much there for Gamble, and you can definitely learn very well how to do this, and also the the business. Holly, what is that business? Um, she'll remind me of it in a minute. The program that we also have for people who are either starting out a new business or thinking of starting a new business.
Accelerate.
Accelerate.
Yeah.
Accelerate, yeah. The
Yeah.
Accelerate program contains all the basics. If somebody is just coming into this scared, doesn't know how to start a business or anything, the Accelerate program will definitely get you started with that. But
Yeah.
anyway, I didn't mean to turn it into a big Gamble commercial there, Norma. I got off track there. I told you before we talked that I'm bad about starting chasing rabbit trails.
That's okay. That's okay.
And
But yeah, it's definitely a good business. You know, time wise, you know, now I live close to the grandkids, so there's volleyball, basketball, all kinds of events. So I kind of can take time to go do those things and schedule my people around them. And I also teach classes, so you know, I can schedule the days for people coming and going. So if you want a flexible schedule and you want a job that really makes you feel good, then quilting business is definitely for you.
okay, and I have another question here, Norma.
Okay.
Where do you buy your thread and batting for your client quilts? Do you charge for thread and batting for E2E? So what about that?
Yep, I do. I charge batting just like the store would. I do buy it wholesale and I look at what the stores are charging for it. So, you know, they can go buy it from them or me, and I always tell them that. I used to buy my batting when I lived in Texas. I used to buy it directly from Hobbs because they were in Waco, Texas. Now I buy my batting from E.E. Schenck. It's a wholesale company here. It's in Portland, so it's a little bit of a drive, but when I buy batting, I try to buy it for the year. So I try to figure out, I mainly buy two battings. My favorite battings are Hobbs 80/20 and heirloom wool, because I use that a lot when I'm doing my custom. And if any quilt that I want to display anywhere, because I display a lot of quilts, I usually do two battings. I put Hobbs 80/20 on the bottom and heirloom wool on the top. And if I have a customer that says I'm going to put this in a quilt show, I always ask them to consider that. So anyway, I do that. I also buy my thread. Typically, I have a count that I've had for a long time from Linda's Electric, and so I usually will watch for a sale or something like that. And again, I'll be writing notes throughout the year on my thread that I'm running out of and what I need. And then I'll try to make that purchase, you know, once a year or once every 6 months. I try not to run out and then have to call every month. So,
Okay. Do you
and I
charge?
do charge for thread. I charge
Okay,
by the bobbin for thread. Yeah.
okay, by the bobbin.
Yeah.
Um, Now, as far as the quilting chart, do you charge by the hour, by the square inch, or
I
what?
do both. So because every quilt is different. And so edge to edge is usually always square inch. And custom is always by the hour. So everybody's custom is different. I have one that came in today that there's some custom to it, but not a lot. There's some areas I can do edge to edge and areas I'm going to custom. So it will be custom and it will be by the hour, but it may not be as expensive as a whole custom quilt. My hourly rate for custom is $35 an hour. So I want to feel very worth it when I'm done, that if I worked 8 hours, that I got a paycheck for that time of 8 hours. I used to do it years ago and would be lucky if I got $5 an hour. So I kind of quit doing that. I'm
You
like,
learned a lesson there, huh?
yeah, I kind of like, here's the hourly rate. I have a timer. I time when I start, I time when I finish. If I take a break, you know, so I know exactly how many hours I put in on your quilt,
Yeah,
and I make it fair.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I've talked to a lot of people, who have experienced some of that same thing that you're talking about. When they started out, they charged way too little, for custom or whatever. You have any advice for people starting out with that issue?
With custom,
Yeah.
well, first off, you must feel confident that you're going to do it well,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
some people are like, well, I don't do that many. So if I do one, you know, I don't want to overcharge if, you know, if they feel like, but I would still set an hourly rate, because edge to edge just doesn't count in custom. You do a whole different level of of work. And I would say after you get 2 or 3 under your belt, just keep gradually increasing that, because you want to feel good that you put in an 8-hour day and you made a good day.
Okay. Can you share what your per square inch was going for in Washington?
Well, I will tell you that when I was in Texas, I was doing 3 cents per square inch. And when I moved here, my housing situation is about double. So I do charge 3.5 cents. And believe it or not, the quilters in this area, that's the base fee. So that's what we charge. Yeah.
Okay, okay, excellent. Um, uh, One of our questioners, Alice, said, side note, what is funny that I am a dental hygienist who wants to cut back and do what I love, which is to quilt. So you're touching base with some people out there.
There you go. There you go. You can do it. You know, I had one of the gals I worked with, her husband kept talking to me. He's a computer tech guy. And I kept saying, well, if I quit, you know, I need to get a really good computer and I really need to have a good software. So I did buy the Quilting Business Manager software. And, you know, I said, I need all these things and I'm scared and I'm nervous. And they kept saying to me, you can do this. You're really good. And people know about you, and you know, and they were kind of like rah 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 behind me. So anyway, he helped me get my Mac computer and get it all set up. And people, if they follow me, they know this, I am crazy about photos. So anyway, my Mac computer has this really good photo editor program. And not that I edit them that much, but I always put my name on my photos. And anytime I'm quilting for anybody, I might do the second row and I'm snapping pictures and sending to them and going, look how beautiful your quilt is. So that's my other thing I'm going to say to new quilters: be enthusiastic. I know that you're a little nervous at first, and you're like, you know, oh, does it look okay? No, 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 it looks fabulous. Look at your beautiful quilt. I mean, anybody that walks in my door, I spread their quilt out and I tell them, and I really mean it, your quilt is beautiful. So you really try to let them know, and pictures really help them visualize. So I'm a big picture taker too. So I don't know why I said that, but
Yes, and I agree. And I've heard that from a few different people who have found photographing their quilts is a key part of what they do. I have another question. Joan is asking, how do you select colors of your thread to have a good supply, and what are the most common?
well, yeah. Um, that's an interesting question, because when they come in, a lot of times I'll lay their quilt out and then I will start looking at the colors in their quilt. And there might be teal and orange and yellow. And so I start going, okay, we can do a lot of different colors here. And I'll start pulling them out. Now, the best way to test a color on a quilt, of course, is to spool it up, is to get a big glob of it and spool it up and throw it on the quilt, not just the spool, but to pull it off a little bit. So I'll do that and spread it out on the quilt, and they will hem and haw a little bit, but usually they'll go, oh, well, that looks really good. And then I say, well, let's look at the backing, make sure it looks good with the backing. And if they ask me my opinion, I don't step in unless they ask me, but if they ask me, I'll tell them. I will say, honestly, I like this one the best. And I'll tell them why it looks good and why I think it looks good. And I have my intake sheet, I'll write it down. I usually take the spool of thread that they tell me they like, and I'll put it in a Ziploc bag and attach it to their quilt. Even though I wrote it down, it just helps me also see that visual when I pull their quilt out. And I usually keep at least 2 colors of everything in my selection so that I have everything. And the more colors, the better. Every year I try to add a couple more colors. So,
Isn't
um,
there almost an infinite number of colors and in between colors?
right, right. Probably my favorite color that seems to pop out on most of the quilts that you asked me would probably be wheat, my signature wheat. And unlike a lot of you, you're all going to go, because a lot of quilters these days love glide and they love that polyester thread. I'm a cotton thread girl, so I like that depth and I like to see the quilting, and I will use glide at times and I will for different occasions, but wheat signature thread is probably my favorite. It just kind of goes with a lot of things. So
Okay. And Paula is asking, do you use the same thread for top and bobbin? And what are your favorite brands? You just alluded to some of that.
absolutely use the same thread in the top and bottom. And if somebody asks me to not do that, I go, I'm going to do the same thread in the top and the bottom, and I'm going to tell you why. Because no matter how you get that tension, it's still going to pop up a little bit. And I want it to be successful
Yeah.
for you. And I can change colors of thread during your quilt if you want me to, and I will change both, but always, always the same.
Gotcha. Uh, we're just going through questions. People are just throwing in questions here, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to get back to my list or not. But Alice is asking, do you ever feel that you need to sell quilts for too cheap to friends, coworkers, etc.?
I don't sell quilts. So all my quilts are class samples, and I don't do that. Sometimes people in the past, I haven't done it lately, but they've asked me to make a custom quilt for them for their bed and have me look at their bedroom colors. And I had 3 girls that worked for me in Texas, and they would do the piecing and I would do the quilting. I still have one that kind of does that for me. But anyway, I will, usually those quilts are $1,000 or more because they're all custom, but I don't do that. So I don't know. I think eventually I might sell some of these quilt samples, but unless you just really, really want to get rid of it, you can sell it for whatever you want. But I do have some of my students that have Etsy stores. And so they'll sell their quilts on Etsy and so anyway, I don't know. Did I answer that question?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Okay. We got about 15 minutes left, so let's get this knocked out. Hardest part of growing your business, both back in Texas and in Washington. What would you say about that?
Well, I think the hardest part is you feel a little bit frustrated when you're not as busy as you want to be. So being patient and just finding avenues of how to get myself out there, and think about other things that I can do. So hanging with quilters is a good one, whether you go to the guild or whether you go to the store, or it's kind of like you need to go where the quilting is, so that subject is going to be present, right? So anyway,
Mhm.
and then if you do a good job for somebody, ask them to refer you. If you really liked how I quilted for you, I all the time will say, oh, do you have a business card? And they'll say, sometimes they'll say no, and I'll give them one. And sometimes they'll say yes. And I'll say, well, but your friends need one. So I'll hand them 3 more and say, so take these to your friends, because be sure and let your friends know that I'm here. So when I do go to the guilds and speak, I will tell you I'm very careful about, I know that you have long arm quilters here. I know that you've had people that you love for years, because you always, once you get a long arm quilter you love them. And I'm not there to take their business away. I just say, if they're
Mhm.
busy or if you need a shorter turnaround time, I can do it in 2 weeks for you. So let me know if I can help you. So always present it as you're helping them. So
Yeah, and that's a big thing. That's something that I have picked up on, that some of the new people, they worry about. They don't want to enter into a guild and be looked at as competition, or a danger or anything. And some of that spirit that you just shared right there, I think speaks to some of that.
well, they like fast. Most quilters like fast. I mean, I've had some people come in and say, I'm so glad you're here. My quilter is 10 weeks out, you know, so I needed it for this occasion. So I really appreciate that. Now, once they learn about me, once they see it, she may come back again. You know, she, because she knows that she's confident that I can, because, and I always, always, always thank them for coming to me because they have choices. They can go wherever they want. Thank you for trusting me with your quilt because I know you could have went somewhere else. So I always try to be appreciative too.
And since you've been doing this in two different places, would you say the place you were at before and the place that you are now, did it seem like the market is saturated, or if there's openings? What do you say about that?
Absolutely not. I mean, more and more people, I feel like, are getting like little, small, long arms for themselves. They want to quilt for themselves, and so they're doing that. That's okay. There's a lot of that out there, but here's the thing, not everybody likes to do that. I have many people that they like to piece, but they don't want a long arm.
Mhm.
So, you know, there's both people out there. So I feel like there's enough quilting in the world for all of us. There's so much, you know, in Texas, and there was a lot of quilters, and, you know, we just put ourselves, I actually was in a brochure, and you might check to see if your quilt store has a brochure. Our quilt store did a brochure and they listed all the long arm quilters. So I paid to have my name in that, but I did do that. Now here, they don't have that, but I think that if you wanted to, I think a lot of the guilds, if you join membership, you can pay for an ad in their newsletter.
Have uh have both of the places that you've been have they been urban or rural?
Um, you know, in Texas, I was in a smaller college town, I would say, than here. Here, I'm definitely in a bigger place. I'm really close to Seattle. So I would say I'm more in the city here as far as that is. Um,
You went from one world to the other, didn't you?
I did because Texas,
Yeah,
it's warm, it's hot. You know, I loved it in the winter, but I have to tell you, I love it here in the summertime. So, yeah, I went from one extreme to the other, kind of.
gotcha. Um, well, Norma, who would you say have been some of your biggest cheerleaders or support system in this journey?
Oh my gosh, my family for sure. My daughter, she brainstorms with me sometimes. She's a director of a library, and sometimes I'll say, I don't know technically what to do with some of these things. And we were doing the expo, and she goes, oh my gosh, you need a free gift. So she's my market person that says you need to give a free gift that has your name on it, you know. And actually she had me do these shirts, so we did these shirts. So I have shirts with Norma's Quilt Studio, so we did that. So we did a few things like that, but anyway, she's definitely one. And I would say the guy who helped me with my Mac computer and said, Norma, you can quit your job and do this. You're going to be okay. Um, and you're really good, and you need to believe in yourself. And so a lot of it is what you believe, for real.
Do you have does some of your family live close to you where you are now?
Yes, that's the reason I moved here, is my daughter lives 5 miles from here. So I'm really close to the grandkids, which I've not been close to. So it's been so fun to be close to them. And my daughter knows lots of people. Of course, not a whole lot of quilters, but I did move to a 55 plus retirement area here. And interestingly enough, there's quite a few quilters here, and they go by my window. I don't know if you can see my window in the back, but I have
No.
great big windows, and they go by my window and they say, we knew you were a long arm quilter because we saw your long arm in the window. So I've gotten a few customers just from that, which has been funny. Yeah.
Do you have some window peepers in the 55 community there?
Well, it's so close to the road, and they all walk here. So yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But anyway, I've been loving it, being close to the kids and my daughter. And so yeah, that's been way fun.
So as far as the quilting, what kind of impact has just being in control of having your own personal schedule and everything, how has that impacted your life?
Oh my gosh, if you want to have your own personal schedule, again, you need to become a quilter because you can do it. You know, I'm always scheduling people coming and going and what I'm doing, but I'm still able to go to the volleyball games or go pick up somebody after school or do what I need to do. So, or teach a class, you know, on Friday or something, so I can schedule around all of that. I typically work very late at night when I'm quilting because my go time is usually 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. for the very reason that nobody's calling me, nobody's texting me, I'm not on my email. So it kind of is my quiet time. So I do a lot of that, but I do a lot of my running during the day. So that's kind of when I quilt the most.
Okay. Do you have like business hours or anything like that? Or you just, what about that?
Not really. I just tell them, first off, I always tell them if you want a quote, I'll give you a quote as fast as you want, anytime you want, just text me the size of your quilt. And then we start talking about, I always give them options. I try not to give them too many options because I don't want to say I'm here from 9 to 5 tomorrow. So I'll say, okay, you can come at 2:30 or 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. So it kind of narrows it down for me when they're coming. So anyway, yeah, I just kind of do that. So I don't really have business hours. And if somebody says, you know, I'm going to be out of town, can I come and pick my quilt up at midnight? I would probably let them, you know. So I try to be very accommodating. Here, some of my students are about 35 miles away, and I'll say, hey, I'll make a trip over to Silverdale to that next town and I'll bring your quilt. How about that? Would that help you? So I try to be accommodating too.
Okay. Well, I think you're good at rolling with the punches. So I want to jump back for one other follow-up question. Joan is asking about going back to the thread. I understand the spooling and selecting colors, but how have you selected your stock of spools?
Well, I guess when I started out, I tried to get a wide range. Now I kind of know what I need, and I'll make a note for myself that I need to reorder that, and I'll make a list of thread reorder. So probably the most popular ones are white and parchment and pearl and wheat. So the ones that are the most popular, when I was in Texas, I was near a school called Texas A&M, so cranberry was very popular. But I would say gray thread is also very popular because everything matches with gray. So, but if you can do those basic colors first and foremost, those are usually the good go-to colors for sure. So you get into some of the crazier colors. There's one called wine. There's one called green grass. I mean, you have to be careful because you have to have that color of quilt. So if you want to do the basic, I would say parchment and linen is probably another good one.
Okay. You might feel like the Gandhi of quilting here because we're having more questions. How do you handle something like a tension problem or any other frustrating moments that happens on a customer quilt?
You know, I have to honestly say, since I've gotten my new Statler Ascend, I have had absolutely no tension issues, but I also know how to test my tension.
Uh,
So learn how to do that. So I will take my bobbin thread and I will take a totally different color and I'll take my top thread. That's the only time I do two different colors. And I will take it off to the side and I will do some stitching. I usually put it on hand stitching so I can see it and do some loops and see how it's reacting. So do I need to tighten or loosen a little bit? I always, 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 when I change every color, not every spool, but I always use the bobbin. I'm trying to think what it's called, the bobbin that you test your bobbin with.
the toa gauge?
I always use that. So I always use that because number one, your bottom bobbin is probably the one that's going to be effective first. So I always use that to make sure that it's correct. When I change colors, I don't usually do it every time, but when I change colors, I always make sure and check my needle to make sure that it's sharp. And I usually will switch my needle out after I do at least 2 full quilts. I'll switch it back out. And then I always kind of, if I need to tighten the top thread, if I'm doing that testing on the side and I see that something's not working right with each other, or I've got too much on the top or too much underneath. So I check it, I test it, and I know what I'm looking for. I'm ready to go. So, and before I do a custom quilt, every time I will take that little case off that holds the bobbin where the foot is. I'll take that whole thing out and clean all the lint out in there and clean that machine from top to bottom before I start any custom. And every custom quilt gets a new needle, because I'm
Okay.
going to be beating it up pretty big with the custom. So,
So you take that throat plate off and
oh yeah.
clean the whole thing out in there.
Oh yeah, I do. And I will tell you, I get pieces of thread down there that I'm like, how on earth did that happen? I was very careful, but I will find those things that will cause issues. So I clean it a lot. I maintain it and know that it's only going to work well if I make sure that I do my part, that it's clean.
I talk to people all the time that they'll have a bunch of thread wrapped around something here or there, and they have no idea how it got there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. You're like, wow.
Right. All right. We're getting down to a couple of minutes here, Norma.
Okay.
Is there, can you think of anything that you wish that somebody would have told you, like when you first started out about this?
Um, you know, I went and got education, and I made sure that I went as much as I could, and I made sure and studied it. Um, so I can't really think of anything. I guess that, it's going to be slow. Take your time and take your time learning, and give yourself, a good 6 months to just know the machine and get to know each other. So, but education, 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 do more. I know there's a lot of things out there. The Gamma website has things, Quilting with Confidence. I mean,
Yeah.
just do as much as you can.
New owner training on gamel.com.
Yeah.
Um, okay. To wrap this up, you you in particular have had two different opportunities to basically begin your business. Um, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to do what you're talking about? And do you think it's still possible to do it in this day and age?
I do. I do. I feel like I even talked to my granddaughter about it. This is a good industry to get into, a good career to get into. You have flexibility, you make good money, you make people happy. I mean, and for me, I love it. I love doing it. So I do feel like that it is something that is very something that people can do. And yeah, you have to buy an expensive piece of equipment. You have to spend money to make money, but it doesn't take long before it nets a return and you'll be fine. So
Great. Well, Norma, thank you very much. I do want to give you an opportunity. Can you tell, what's the best place is for people to find you or contact you?
oh my goodness, Norma's Quilt Studio. So if you type in Norma's Quilt Studio, it will come up usually on Facebook. I have a website. My website is njbestquilts.com. I have a section that says, where is Norma at? Like, where is Waldo at? So it tells you where I'm at and what I'm doing. So anyway, there's that. I have a YouTube channel. I have some Statler training videos on there, not a lot, but sometimes I'll be working and I go, oh my gosh, they need to know this. So I'll do a quick video. I do test for a couple of designers and I do some videos for them sometimes. But anyway, Norma's Quilt Studio is where you get and where you find me. And on my website, NJ Best Quilts, I have a contact form that you can contact me if you have questions too. So
And the YouTube, what would that be? Your name, Norma
it's
Stark?
Norma's Quilt Studio.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. It's under
Okay.
Norma's Quilt Studio. I think Norma Stark, it says. So yeah. And I don't do a lot with that, but if I think of something new, I'll throw it on there. So, it's just, I did for the piece. I know there's not a lot of piecers out there, but sometimes quilters are piecers. Just to let you know, I do a whole bunch of free videos on my YouTube on piecing. So, how to find a 1/4 inch, how to cut accurately, how to press accurately. I did a whole series for, Stitch in Heaven. And so we did a whole series and I did training for people. So just know that there's free stuff out there too.
Okay. Well, Norma, thank you so much. It's been totally enjoyable talking to you. I
Oh,
really,
good.
really do
Good.
appreciate it.
It
And
was fun.
yeah, I'm sure you'll be hearing from some people. Well, that does it,
Okay,
I guess,
cool.
for this episode of Quilting Business Success. Norma, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was fun.
You people that are watching, thank you so much.
Y'all have a good
And,
evening.
you too, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.